Welcome to the acclaimed podcast, The Deep Dive, featuring your esteemed hosts, Andy Monitor and Drew Dinzik, powered by BetSperts.
Welcome to The Deep Dive. Bear down, Chicago Bears.
Bear down,
It is
Chicago
the
Bears.
annual pod where we opine about the eternal optimism of the Chicago Bears fans. And I think the specific fan base you would use as the example of, just fans getting geeked about a team.
Yeah.
More so than in realistic expectations, year in, year out, is probably Chicago, right? Like they buy in big time.
And then you guys, if you're from
year.
Chicago,
And
if you're a
this
Bears
is-
fan,
this is the
it's
year
the
they
compliment
get-
and an insult.
Yeah.
It's for sure a compliment and an insult. But boy, the bar for a team that actually, we just talked about the Minnesota Vikings. Truthfully, if you go back and look, one of the most successful teams in the NFL historically over the course of the entire league's history, as far as win percentage and games won and playoff appearances, no Super Bowls. The Bears have a Super Bowl. Like, for a team that has a Super Bowl, it's crazy how low the bar is for, like, get us a good quarterback and the gates to heaven will open. I do want to. There is a part from the Football Outsiders. It's the opener, and I'd highlighted this when I looked at the Bears. I highlighted this like a week ago. It said 10 passing touchdowns would be a new rookie passing record for the Chicago Bears. So with
what?
2,194 passing yards would be. So if you're reading these chapters in order, you just came from a Carolina Panthers essay, the wind of the struggles of Bryce Harper, yada, yada, yada. He said, how about 3,839 passing yards and 30 touchdowns? That's basically, it says nearly the equivalent of last year's Derek Carr. Those would be franchise records. They've never had a 4,000-yard quarterback touchdown. They've never had a 4,000-yard passer. They've never had a 30-touchdown passer. Like, there's been some decent quarterbacks who just haven't put it all together. Had a Super Bowl appearance, not 15, 20 years ago at this point, but
Yeah,
it feels like this team has had so many stars. This team has people going into the Hall of Fame this year, multiple guys who spent chunks of their career. But Devin Hester, the greatest returner of all time.
yeah.
We've had so many star defensive players come through here and just never put it all together at the same time with a quarterback. And hope springs eternal in July and August. And Caleb will fix it all, guys. He might.
Let's start with like some. Let's just start with like the basics. Caleb Williams MVP 55-1. Is that a bet?
Horrific.
Is that a bet? I mean, I don't think he has a chance, but it's still.
If he's getting cute, that kind of stuff, there's probably Bears NFC, Bears over 14 wins.
Well, he's going to have a playoff stinker this year, probably. The question is if it's in the NFC Championship game or if it's in the divisional round. Yeah.
Oh God, what are we doing? It's ending. We're going to start over.
I think the point I'm trying to actually make here, besides just being a troll, is that if you live in a world of eternal optimism as a Chicago Bears fan, and your favorite months of the year are July and August, expecting that there could be a beautiful, beautiful breakout for your beloved Bears, you now actually have a fine reason to be optimistic. Caleb Williams,
it's realistic this time.
It's realistic. Like the idea of hey, what if he does light the league on fire? Like, what if he does have an RG3 type of season? Yeah, he could. Like, very well could. Like, this is kind of a good roster on the offensive side of the ball for sure. There's some questions on the defensive side of the ball, but there's some questions about exactly what you're going to get from the offensive coordinator. But there's certainly a lot you can point to that does not feel propped up with pie-eyed optimism. That feels moored in these guys were good last year, and now they have a quarterback who might elevate them. Like, this could get very interesting if you love the Bears. That said, it's still a rookie, and the idea to me that you are going to probably the realistic where you should start, in my opinion, if you are a Bears fan, is you should expect to see some mind-meltingly awesome confirmation bias for your optimism in some games. You should see some plays. You should see some moments that really kind of confirm for you that this guy was number one for a reason, and he is going to ultimately be the guy that you watched on NFL Sundays for years to come. There will also be moments where you are probably frustrated and banging your head against the wall and wondering, why is he doing what he's doing? And the answer is going to be a very simple: he's a rookie. And rookies take a long time to learn at the NFL level because the game is much more complicated. And Caleb Williams in particular had a difficult year last year with a little bit of adversity. And, this year there will be lots of adversity, right? There's going to be a lot of games where, a very good defensive coordinator with really good players has the perfect game plan to frustrate him. And it's going to look bad. And so I think if you just kind of approach this season with that mindset of it's going to be a roller coaster, but at the end of the day, it's going to be one that you are getting on willingly, and you're going to have a smile on your face for enough of it that you're going to feel great. And I think that's fine. Like, that's reasonable. And, you kind of really shouldn't even care about how many wins you get this year, honestly. Like, it would be nice to get a winning season and to be in the mix for a playoff spot, or particularly a wild card spot. But if it doesn't happen, but you do get to experience Caleb Williams' highs and lows to the tune of feeling certain that he's your guy for years to come, then that's a huge win. And
the Bears fans were just, like, to use your term, geeked out over like some late season garbage game. Justin Fields. I mean,
sure.
Do you remember Justin Fields to DJ Moore? Like, the preseason game that started last year where he had like 150 yards and 2 touchdowns on his first 2 passes because they just went like he housed some screen passes. People were beyond excited for that. So, like, if you get what is a rookie controlled contract in year 1 and you get like 4 games out of the 17 where he is good, like, I'd be pumped as shit. I'd be so excited because you're going to win some games where he's not that good. You're going to, you're probably going to win half your games this year, and unless he's an absolute dud. And I mean, those 4 games are going to keep you going. It's like it's hitting that long putt on 18 after you had a shitty round. Like, those things can sustain you. So I don't even think he has to have like an overall great, like, crazy rookie of the year season, which, I mean, those are, I don't know. It didn't used to be that way where a rookie quarterback could just step in. I think a lot of it was years past. You didn't start rookie quarterbacks the way we do now. Where guys really did sit on the bench for a year or two, just kind of how the world worked. But now that we had like the Herbert year where he, go look at those numbers, just eye popping.
Oh, yeah.
The Stroud kind of started slow, honestly.
Sure, he did.
And then what he was able to do, just his complete lack of interceptions for big chunks of the season, like, definitely within the realm of possibility. I worry about the coaching staff, but that's kind of my only trepidation outside of maybe how excited people are for this defense after the end of last year.
Yeah, we'll get to that. I think you got to rein that in a little bit. I really do.
That's what's keeping this team pretty much on par with the Vikings for me.
Okay, so let's talk about last year and let's talk about their arc in general. I think Nick makes a great point. Crazy how 2 teams in the division have done so much with 1 single trade each. The Bears trade in particular was amazing. Like, the fact that they traded out of the 1 for the future 1 and got a better quarterback than they could have drafted is crazy. It's crazy. And I know that, we can totally rewrite history and say, they missed out on CJ Stroud, who I think has a more realistic chance of winning MVP this year. But still, like, I mean, what a coup to be able to get guys to build up your core and get the number 1 overall pick the next year via trade is just amazing. And I think overall, you have to give a very, very high grade to Poles at this point for what he's done, and you can do that while acknowledging some of it was luck based. I don't know that when they traded out of the one for Bryce, for Panthers to take Bryce Young, if they realistically were like, well, they're going to take a rookie quarterback, they're probably going to be bad. We might get a nice pick out of this. I don't know that you're thinking surely we're going to get the first overall pick, and that was really where the gift came, because you had a lot of teams right behind you that needed quarterbacks, and so it had to break just right here. And I think Poles in general has done most everything that I would have wanted somebody to do in his position throughout his tenure for this team, with the exception of the coaching selection.
The Claypool thing was sure,
Claypool was a bad trade. That's true.
And honestly, even the trade,
but he was trying to get talent on a team that had no wide receiver talent. He gave up way too much for a player who sucked, but like process wise, I don't know that you totally
his process has been
him for that.
It's been, and he's newish, so I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt because he has made some shrewd moves. Although I don't want to give him all the credit in the world for landing the number one pick. Like, all it took was Carolina drafting CJ Stroud, maybe, again, revisionist history, and maybe the Bears, maybe maybe the Bears, the Bears, the Texans picked 24th. They could have been picking 20th, and suddenly it's like shit. Then the calculus is different. We're sticking with Justin Fields, or we're trading up for Bo Nix. Like, things are very different based on what happens there. I don't think he can get full credit for Carolina being shitty at being a franchise. So it's been a mixed bag, but I like the Sweat pick up, even though it was, one of those weird ones where like, why is this team a buyer at this point? It's like, this is an extension of the 2024 offseason. Like, you're just kind of getting ahead of things. Guess what? We need a pass rusher, and he's available now. Let's just get him now and extend him. Fuck it. Like, why wait and try to outbid people for Danielle Hunter? Let's get Montez on the start of deal right now instead.
Yep, loved it. And
that was fun. DJ Moore shit was great.
Yes. Also, real quick, because you reminded me about the Texans thing. The original deal was the Bears were going to trade down to 2 with the Texans before the Texans just didn't get back to him in time, and they pulled the trigger on the Panthers trade. And the other huge part of the Panthers trade is you have the best wide receiver in franchise history out of that trade. DJ Moore is good. And you haven't had a good wide receiver in forever. And not only is he good, but he's good for specifically what you want to do, which is develop a young quarterback. So they hit the double jackpot in a way that we haven't seen in a long time. And credit to them for that. But also, it's lucky. And yeah, the Sweat deal I thought was fine. The fact that they signed him, we were like skeptical at the time. Like, man, like, can you believe they made this trade and they don't have like a deal in principle? Like, this could look real stupid. No, they had that. They worked it out.
DJ Moore had by yardage, the 4th best receiving year in Chicago Bears history. I don't think it's a very old team, right? It's probably one of those expansion teams from like the 90s. They don't have 1,000 years. Granted, they played 10 games back then. And DJ Moore got 17 compared to, Alshon and Brandon Marshall's 16 game seasons. Sure. But still, he had the 4th best season of the Bears as far as receiving yards goes.
With a quarterback with a quarterback poo-poo platter that was pretty poor. So amazing. I guess I look at their 2023 campaign overall, and it started poorly. 4 straight losses, Fields experiment on the rocks, and then you have your breakout against the Commanders week 5, and it's like, okay, well, there's something. Maybe there is something there. Immediately drop one to the Vikings, where you should have maybe won that game.
Time out there too. You had the weirdness. I believe it was week 2 or week 3, where it's just like, hey, we had to fire our DC, and we can't tell you why.
Oh yes.
It was probably something. They said it was something high. Why? Do you remember where the rumors on the internet was Peanut Tillman is an FBI officer? He's at Hallis Hall. None of that was true, but it did turn out it was like some sort of inappropriate conduct is what they settled on. They got rid of him. That actually turned out probably turned out to be decent. They brought in Phil Snow, I think is who they ended up. Maybe that was later on. Or just maybe even this offseason. I don't even know. Like, we didn't know who the DC really was at certain points. It was just kind of Eberflus taking over that spot. But it was a weird team, like you said, with the flux of that and how bad the season starts, I thought he was going to get just shit canned in 5 games.
Yeah, I would have been fine. They through 9 games. This is a team that had MVP hopes for Justin Fields. This was a team that had, expected to make the step forward into the playoff picture, and they are now 2-7 through 9 weeks of football. And they've beaten the Raiders and the Commanders, and only the Commanders was even really a convincing win. I guess the Raiders was too. It was 30-12, but it was a bad team. Now they're down to Tyson Bagent, and now things are completely off the rails, and you literally are watching more Panthers games than you're watching Bears games in the hopes.
He was fun for a little bit.
Did he beat the Panthers? Who was the quarterback the week they beat the Panthers 16-13? I think it might have been Bagent.
He was fun when he'd run. Like, he was a sneaky good runner.
It was Bagent. Bagent did you the mega solid of defeating the Panthers, which helps you and helps you. So
he had a 2-2 record as a starter, guys.
They did something sneaky covering that Saints game that made me angry. And then is one of the worst games of the season. Was this in the mix for shower fart game of the year, that Vikings Bears game that ended 12-10?
12-10. Yeah.
Was that a shower fart of the year contender?
It was,
because I'm looking at these
there.
offensive numbers, and that one was bad.
Yeah, so Bagent beat the Raiders as well, but that game was like 3-3 at halftime, and it was field goal, Hawkinson from Dobbs, and then Cairo Santos with the walk-off. Who was it? That was Fields back at that point. So it was Fields versus Dobbs.
Ooh, yuck. Sheesh. You took on and beat the mighty Detroit Lions at home. That was a game I remember fondly. I bet the Bears in both the Lions games, because the Bears' run defense was really peaking down the stretch. Like, they were looking outstanding in the run defense, and that was really kind of flummoxing teams that wanted to be a little more balanced. But at the end of the season, you're looking at 8-7 and 2 against the spread, basically 500 against on total. So pretty unremarkable in totality. 2 losses to the hated Green Bay Packers. You split with Minnesota, but you get a top 10 pick out of it, which was your own pick, and you get a number 1 pick out of it, which was Carolina. So all in all, I think you would trade that season. You wouldn't trade that season for much. That was pretty huge, pretty special. And I think France is going to win a gold medal in surfing. Bummer.
I'm hearing the surfing conditions are shitty.
They're pretty bad. They've been bad, but they got good for the bronze medal and gold medal match. So worth rewatching. But the French surfer basically had a perfect 10 red. He's going to win. France gold in surfing. Okay, whatever. All right. They should have swept Detroit. I agree, Nick. In general, their offseason moves I thought were solid. I did not love bringing in DeAndre Swift. I thought that was dumb. I would have leaned into youth with Herbert and Johnson. But whatever. You have extra money to spend. You're spending it. Go for it. In general, I give Poles an A+ for his ability to evaluate talent and construct an offensive line from whole cloth. This group of 5 guys looks rock solid to me, and a lot of them were self-scouted, so that's great. Keenan Allen, bringing him in as a kind of a nice safety, kind of possession receiver, considering what we saw from him last year.
Best possession receiver I think there is right now.
Yeah,
there's better receivers. There's a lot of better receivers, but as far as when you say possession receiver, that's important for a lot of teams. But Christ Almighty, that's important for
a rookie. Yeah.
It's great having DJ Moore as one and the upside of a top 10 wide receiver, but man, to have him as a safety outlet, he's just constantly beating coverage. Whatever you ask him to do, he'll go do it. He's good enough. He just obviously had some health concerns.
Yep.
So,
you managed to.
It's been overstated almost at this point, but no number 1 has ever stepped into an offense like this.
Yeah,
we had two stud receivers, and if you're drafted as a top 10 wide receiver, usually that team sucks shit, and you're probably asked to be one of the best receivers on that team. To get to come in and be number 3, to ease in with maybe some lesser kind of expectations put on you. That's really nice for Rome.
Yeah. Here's the problem. So ultimately I give you a B+ for vision and execution and establishing an offense to put around a rookie quarterback. The only demerit is you spent money on DeAndre Swift when you didn't have to, and you could have spent that money on the defense because the defense, it's got some holes.
It was a weird move. Eagles just fleece people with like, hey, look how good he was here. Like, I guess you have a nice 3-headed monster, but you were probably fine with the 2-headed monster.
Yes, you were fine with the 2-headed monster. I completely agree. And I don't think you're fine with. I applaud you for keeping Jalen Johnson, but all of the rest of the coverage looks real sus to me.
Kevin Byard is like our age.
Kevin Byard's too old. Jaquan Brisker.
He doesn't grade out that poorly. Brisker doesn't, but like Byard's old. Like he could just fall off a cliff this year.
Yeah, a lot of guys. Jonathan Owens is congratulations to Simone Biles on the other hand, who is amazing. Kyler Gordon, nickel. You're starting Tyreek Stevenson at left cornerback right now. That's question mark. Like there's
some upside there, but yeah, it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, like I would like if you're in the hey, we're trading assets for players, we're making a run department. Like, were you in the
can't fix it all? You can't fix it all at once.
Conversations. Yeah. Justin Simmons wouldn't have done a better job than Kevin Byard. There's definitely some stuff on the defensive side of the ball that feels like gets a C for me in terms of vision and execution. So nervous
if
about
if you had to prioritize one side of the ball, it's always going to be offense. And
always, yeah.
I feel like it's similar to what we said about Minnesota, where it's like, hey, maybe they solidify what they have with their young quarterback and then figure out where exactly the big deficiencies are on defense. I mean, if things are really flying, they could be maybe in the same the same boat they were last year, where there's some sort of mid-season acquisition they go and get, like, hey, we need another corner to go across from our stud. We need one more pass rusher, and they get somebody mid-season. I know it's obviously not the same as baseball where there's a million mid-season trades, but it does happen. Obviously, we've seen a lot of that with the Rams of the last few years. Teams can get aggressive there, but I would think their offseason next year is going to be, between the draft, free agency, and any trades, it's going to be like 80-20 defense, right?
I would hope so. Yeah. You're getting you spent on linebackers and Edwards and Edmonds, and now they're getting old. So you're gonna need to backfill there. You're gonna need pass rush talent outside of Montez Sweat. That room looks super lean.
That's my biggest problem with this team. It's like you went and got a pretty good pass rusher, and then that's like it.
Honestly, the problem is the defense was good last year at doing some things that now they need to be good at other things if they're going to win games. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Hey, congratulations. You were great at stopping the run, so you got more chances to score, and you didn't win anyway. Now you need to be good at rushing the passer and elite coverage to put away wins. Not looking so likely to me. So of the sort of big deltas between last year defensive DVOA and this year, Bears are way up there just because of the very different game states this defense is going to find themselves in second halves. Does that check out?
Yeah, and again, if Sweat just draws a bunch of doubles and they can't get to any sort of pressure because they didn't decide to, get him a lot of help. And outside of your one really good corner, if you're having some deficiencies or, God forsake, injuries back there, yeah, it's going to be troubling. It's going to be a fun second half over team, maybe.
That's a great call. Great call. I love that. And I think just in general, the big delta between, say, anyone who was looking at EPA for finding bright spots and looking at like the Bears rush EPA per play defense, which was phenomenal, right? Or just their defensive EPA in general. Like we're top 10. We're going someplace. DVOA, you were 17th overall on defense because you didn't really play very many good quarterbacks, and
Well, and it was
Particularly,
a really split season, and a big part. People want to point to that Montez Sweat trait so much as like what turned around this team. He definitely helped. And honestly, Montez Sweat gets a pretty good grade in just about everything. He's a good tackler. He's a good run stopper when he's asked to do that too. Even though he's more of a pure pass rusher.
yeah,
But a big part of what happened was they started to change up their coverages quite a bit. Sweat was part of what allowed them to do that
sure.
because they improved their pass rush. But
That makes
a
sense.
lot of what happened was they just started to switch up a lot of the coverages and a lot of the scheme. And truthfully, they improved their luck. They improved their turnover luck. They improved their interception luck. Like a lot of it was that, and that's why DVOA fleshes it out to be a slightly below average defense, despite how good they looked late in the year. There's still a lot of upside. Defense is super hard to predict, but considering the roster they put out, I don't see it like taking a step forward right now.
Yeah, no, I agreed. And I think you played one elite quarterback last year, Andy. It was Pat Mahomes.
Cousins twice.
Week 3. It was Pat Mahomes week 3, and he scored 41 points on you.
He did put it on your ass.
Yeah.
So, your ass in the jackpot.
Yeah, he had your ass in the jackpot bigly. And so, yeah, I mean, I think just in general, like, if there's a reason to be skeptical, it's certainly the defensive side of the ball, and the offensive side of the ball should have amazing highs and could have some inconsistencies because of the youth. But these are good problems to have if you're a Bears fan.
Yeah.
This is a new paradigm.
The other big offseason thing I think we should mention before we get into ratings is Shane Waldron. Obviously, you kept together what you had for the defense, but you brought in Getsy replacement. Shane Waldron obviously was out in Seattle working with that squad for the last couple of years. We've seen a lot of unevenness with the performance of that team on both sides of the balls, but we saw some good things, and we saw good usage in what he did. If you want a good apples to apples, like,
you saw good development.
Development, but also what did he have out there? Three top receivers, 3 good receivers, one of them being a young man who just got drafted last year. Kind of a similar situation for him to walk into with a strong wide receiver room and
great point.
Maybe some more development that needs at the quarterback.
Yeah, presumably a head coach that's going to put less of his fingerprints on things.
And he's a McVay guy, so he came out of that McVay tree, whatever you want to call it, family tree. He was the Rams passing game coordinator before he ended up in Seattle. So he was a big part of kind of the shift there in the offense, bringing in some modern, like, hey, we can put more than 2 wide receivers on the field at a time. We can move guys around. We can do some things. So hopefully that's a big plus for this offense with the young quarterback. I think that's a good movement. Getsy wasn't exciting anybody.
Among the offensive coordinator hires that were picked from whole cloth to fill a vacancy with an incumbent coach, I thought Waldron was good. I thought that was about as good as you were going to do. I preferred it to Philadelphia taking Kellen Moore as an example. Like, you saw enough positive about what Waldron did in Seattle, I think, to take a chance on him. And most of Seattle kind of falling apart was that, for what he got out of Geno Smith, like, Geno Smith still has a talent deficit relative to all the rest of the quarterbacks he's playing against. And the offensive line was just brutally injured last year in Seattle, which really made things very, very difficult to kind of sustain, offense. And they really wanted to get Kenneth Walker the ball for whatever reason, because Pete Carroll wanted to chomp some gun and run the ball. It could be a breath of fresh air for Waldron in Chicago, and I'm excited to see how he does with Caleb Williams and what he does with him. And I actually, what I liked maybe even the best. You know how we were hard on Washington for taking Cliff Kingsbury, and we were like, just like get like Daniels like OC, right, from college or something. Like, don't get somebody unknown, young, kind of new ideas that knows what he's working with. Like, I'm kind of glad the Bears didn't do that with Williams because of what we heard about him from his USC days, particularly late, where he really, really wanted to have a lot of control over what they were doing offensively. And rather than kind of tack into that and bring in somebody that Caleb Williams was excited about working, playing for, and was going to, give him latitude, you brought in somebody who's going to be a kind of a more like a teacher, a coach, like give him the development he needs at this level. And I think that was probably a positive in a lot of ways for this particular situation, considering what we know about Williams. And I think Waldron Williams has the potential to ultimately be pretty cool. So good on them for that. Where are you for QBOC number wise? You said 2.5 last pod.
2.5, just because he's a rookie. That's where I put Jaden Daniels. I like Getsy a little more than Kingsbury, obviously, but still keeping it low, starting low. Guys never.
You mean Waldron? We don't. Do you like Getsy at all?
No. I like Waldron better than Kingsbury. Excuse me. I'm comparing it to the Washington situation.
Yeah.
But still starting low because it's a rookie. And the argument, but he has better receiver. Well, I have a receiver grade too. I have a skill position grade that's much different than Washington's.
Yeah. So I'm at 3.5. I'm higher than you. I have high expectations for Williams. I like Waldron, and I wouldn't put them on the same level as a Daniels, Kingsbury, who I have at 2.5.
I hate sticking my neck out like this because, again, I've been on record almost to an annoyance of how bad I am at picking out which rookie quarterbacks would be good. I like Jaden Daniels better than Caleb Williams as a prospect, just from what I've watched from watching quarterbacks play.
Well,
and I'm probably tainted by last year, but
did you see all 2 years ago?
I watched him 2 years ago for sure, but I still like Jaden Daniels better because it's fresher in my mind. That said, obviously the situation for Williams is miles better, so that might this is it might not flesh out for a while. If I'm right, if I'm wrong, this never happened.
What's your skill group?
7.5.
Oh wow, that's a big number. So you like the depth and the roundness. It sounds.
It is a 1, 2, 3, and despite probably not needing DeAndre Swift is still good enough. You have good tight ends. You have, like I said, an elite possession receiver. Another could be a wide receiver 1 on a lot of teams, and DJ Moore and Dunze getting asked to be like, hey, you're our number 3.
Your extra credit, yeah.
And in fact, you know what? You're our number 4, honestly, at this point, because we have a tight end that's probably higher on the depth charts than you right now, as far as the picking order. And again,
target share.
Yes, target share. Not only that, you might be 5th. Honestly, Gerald Everett's a fine backup. Mercedes Lewis is still in the league apparently. He's on this depth chart. I didn't know that, but Everett and Cole Kmet, and then, like you said, DeAndre Swift could build with. We probably could have been fine with Khalil Herbert and Roshan Johnson, but DeAndre Swift. This is a solid ass group. Keenan Allen is, I don't know, probably a little slept on based on just the lack of
availability question mark. But when he's available, he's going to be a huge factor for you. He was a top 20 receiver last year, I think. Clearly.
That's what I'm saying. Everybody's healthy right now. DJ Moore and Keenan Allen. You have 2 top 20 receivers with the highest drafted wide receiver in the draft this year.
No, he was drafted behind Marvin Harrison Jr.
Oh no, Marvin Harrison. Highest rated. No, I think Neighbors was before him too, but highest rated as far as what I was looking at.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay,
I think Marvin Harrison has a better career.
Yeah, I would say so as well. No, very excited.
Oh no, it was we've never seen obviously such a unique situation, but having a wide receiver getting drafted like this, I can't remember what I was reading. It was basically if you get drafted as a top 10 wide receiver, the odds of you playing with a quarterback that's drafted this high, just shit doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen.
So it's a weird situation.
It is weird. You're right. It is weird. Very excited to see if they have chemistry. I'm only at 7. I'm only at 7, and I think maybe I'm just being a little bit too hard on DJ Moore. I don't have DJ Moore in the kind of Amon-Ra, St. Brown.
Oh no, but I think you take a big chunk off his plate by adding Keenan Allen, and he's still such a great second option.
Yeah, for sure.
Fellis Jones and Tyler Scott are still development projects that maybe you have something at the fourth wide receiver. And like I said, the tight end, where do you have Komet as far as tight ends?
He is in the top 10, but he's towards the bottom for me.
Oh, that's fair.
That said, I still think, 7 is a huge score. 70th percentile is awesome. Like, yeah, that's gonna probably be.
I have this the same as the Eagles.
God, dude, all of these skill groups in this division are so sick.
I know.
They
It's
really
crazy
are.
that I have the Bears higher than the Vikings, who have Jefferson. But you got to look at it as a group, I guess.
I'm flip flopped, but this is where we're picking at nits at this point.
Look at this.
Oh.
Yeah, Daniel Jones and Malik Neighbors, top 10 picks.
Oh, look at that. Very different years, though. I think you were talking about the same year to have like top 10.
I can't remember what I was reading. It was basically like
if
if you're a wide receiver one, if you're drafted in the first round, like who you play with as a quarterback is usually, it's escaped me now.
Anyway, what's your O-line score?
5, and this is falling.
Really? Talk me out of my number then, because I'm at 6.
Braxton Jones, very good. Missed games.
Okay.
Tevin Jenkins, very, very good. Left guard. Missed games. Missed 5.
Okay.
He actually played both guard spots last year because Nate Davis, right guard, missed games. 6 of them last year. Ryan Bates is your new center. You got him from Buffalo. He has played 2 games at center ever, I believe, if I'm looking right. Not that he can't adapt to it and they believe in him, and I think he should be fine. But professionally, I don't think he's played there a lot. Darnell Wright, your right tackle, was just okay. You added some depth by bringing in Rams center Colton Shelton. I'm low because you have 3 guys who have some serious injury concerns who've missed time now and are carrying injuries into the season. So Darnell Wright missed his 3rd straight practice on Sunday. Jenkins exited practices as well. Nate Davis has missed almost all the practices. He finally got back to some individual work. So you're right now in practice, you're playing Bill Murray, Jerome Carvin, Brian Bates is in at center. Jones is playing, but Matt Pryor is playing at right tackle. Jatire Carter is mixing in. Like, this is Montez Sweat apparently is kind of eating him up at times.
Oh boy.
They brought in Coleman Shelton, like I said, who they got from the Rams. They brought him in at center, moving Ryan Bates out to right guard. So it's super fluxy right now. Like, they're having bad vibes in camp as far as the offensive line.
I didn't know any of that. Thank you for filling me in.
I was going to say I had it higher. No, Drew, your number is probably about where I would have it if none of this shit was happening, because we're not that far out from week 1. We are 3 preseason games left, and if this shit doesn't straighten out and they don't have their full complement starting, it's going to fall below an average offensive line if they have to start some of these other names. Yeah,
at least they have a soft landing going against Pittsburgh week 1.
Yeah. So this is now
I'm scared for these guys.
This is one that's very much in flux because we have to get through camp and figure out. And the preseason previews we did a month ago are going to be a little different from the ones we're doing now, because we're actually going to start running into preseason injuries real time, and some of the stuff we're going to talk about a month ago is a little outdated. But this is the stuff you have to account for as you head from here to your week 1 number. So this is out of anything that you need to watch for the Bears between now and season starts, it's who the fuck is going to be healthy for this offensive lineman. Yeah,
we're on trench watch for Bears.
Trench watch 2024.
Trench watch, because the other side of the trenches is also a big what's going on. Okay, so you're at a 44th percentile. I'm at a 48th. I'm 48th percentile. Oh boy, maybe I'm too high on these.
There's such a massive range for Williams. Like 55th is like nuts.
Okay, so what's your run stop number?
4.5. They're good at this.
4.5. They're worse than average, you think? Run stop. Oh, that's the strength. That's the strength.
I know.
Of these guys. I'm at 6.5. Who turned over that scares you? Because I got good grades run stop for a lot of the key pieces here. Whole spine to me looks decent run stoppy.
I have it close to average, but I didn't have. Say I have Brisker as a plus. I have some people, like you said, the linebackers are pluses, but they're not getting younger. I have some
they're getting
aging for Edwards, Sanborn, Edmonds. Like I said, Montez Sweat is a help when it comes to the pass or the run stop as well. But I don't have like some of these other guys in the middle rated all that well. It looked good on paper, but at the same time, the context of they're playing bad quarterbacks and teams were running on them. I think I don't know. I just had it as average-ish. Some of those grades were smaller sample size grades. If you look at like the defensive interior guys, I'm not sure who you have the best, but like Billings and Pickens are some of your best interior guys. DeMarcus Walker is probably actually going to be outside, lined up over tackles sometimes. Gervon Dexter. I don't have good run defense grades for anybody individually. Like Montez Sweat is one of my best run defenders up front, honestly. And he should be he should be more of a pass rushing specialist. So it's more of if the linebackers are the ones that have to clean up a lot of this, do I actually think this is a great run stop defense?
Okay. I had a fine grade on Billings.
It was tough though, because you said on paper that some of the DVOA looks okay.
I had a fine grade on Billings. I have a meh grade on Dexter. I have a good grade on Sweat. I have good on Edwards Edmonds, good on Brisker. So overall, I'm at 6.5.
I have Billings as a good player, but I have
only guy that I had that mattered that got replaced was Justin Jones, who's in Arizona now. I think he was pretty good.
Well, I just don't think that team was that good last year.
At run stop they were very good.
I just think
overall they weren't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What's your pass rush number?
I think Jalen Johnson helped a lot with that too. Pass rush is 3. It is Montez Sweat, and that is at. Like I said, I have Billings with a decent grade there, but other than that, like your other edge defenders are it's pretty rough from there on. Like you're gonna get some, I don't know, like who's your second best edge rusher? DeMarcus Walker is gonna move around, and he's okay, but it's Sweat, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for you. I honestly can't tell you. Like
I said, you're going to have good grades for Edwards overall as a linebacker, and that's going to help. But like, he's not somebody who's going to be like super involved in the pass rush a lot. He's more of if we're bringing a blitz, and that's maybe why his grades will kind of look good on like a small sample size of pass rushing. So 3 might be generous. Honestly.
You know who had the most pressures for the Bears last year, Andy?
Jack Sanborn.
No, it was Montez Sweat in 9 games.
Montez Sweat was the leader, your sacks leader for the Bears and the Commanders last year.
Amazing.
Which is
in the mix, though, with similar pressure numbers were Justin Jones and DeMarcus Walker. Justin Jones, aforementioned, is gone. DeMarcus Walker is still around, so maybe he's your number 2 guy in terms of pass rush, but his pressure rate for how many snaps he saw was not great. He only started 12 games, so maybe he came on later. You got nothing out of Yannick Ngakoue last year. What a whiff that was. Dexter doesn't really move the needle at all. So I think ultimately this is a weak unit. I'm at 3. I'm with you. Where are you for coverage?
5.5.
Oh, you're higher than me. I'm at 4. What's the deal with what? How'd you get?
I wondered coming in if we differ because you look at DVA, you look at EPA per play, you look at success rate, you look at individual grades, and this was a really hard one to pick apart because of the changes in scheme, the addition of, like you said, Montez Sweat and some of the changes they made to the coaching staff partway through the year. Jalen Johnson is a star, and that's why it's a 5.5. Kyler Gordon got better. Jacon Brisker's okay. Like you said, Tyreek Stevenson he's in his second year, and they think there's potential, but like it was good. I did have a stat here for Jalen Johnson as far as how good he's gotten. Chicago faced a league low 22% of their passes to number 1 receivers. Like he can shut down a side of the field. and the rest of the guys are not horrific. Like his stardom is bringing up a lot of below average players. Although, they all have their pieces. Like I said, Brisker can help in a lot of other senses. Stevenson has some upside. I don't know who else you have rated high in coverage, but that's about it.
Trick question. That's a trick question. I have Stevenson as below replacement level. I have Gordon as replacement level.
It's hard with like a second-year player, though. Like you have such a small sample.
When you have an elite skill guy like Justin Jefferson, I'm fine elevating your unit even higher because your target share is just going to be huge. When you have an elite cornerback like Johnson, it's a weak link system. You just throw away from him. Like if he gets a handful of targets this year, not going to be surprised. Like if you're up against an offense that really relies on one guy and one guy only, then maybe he can shadow him and you can be effective as pass coverage. But that's going to be the exception, not the rule, I think. So I'm only at a 4 for them for coverage overall. And I like the linebackers. I'm fine with the safeties. I have huge questions with CB2 and CB3. These guys look replacement level to me.
Bayard's old. Brisker's average to slightly above average. Okay. He can help out. He's a decent run stop. He can play up in the box. Bayard, like we said, I don't know how many times we're going to say he's old, but he's old. Owens, okay. But it's Jalen Johnson and a bunch of guys. But Tyreek Stevenson, second year. Kyler Gordon, we saw improvements. Third year. Like, they're young guys with upside. So hopefully it's maybe hard to take some of those grades, and it's like the opposite of the aging curve. I say, hey, this guy's old. I have to assume he's going to be a little worse this year. Hey, these guys are young and they showed some flashes. I have to assume they'll be at least as good, if not like 5 to 10% better. And then Jalen Johnson again can shut down a wide receiver one. So basically, you need your safeties and one of these young corners to pop to take out the rest of a receiving group, and you can play some decent defense, except for the fact that you don't have a super strong pass rush.
Okay.
I thought I was going to be low on this defense.
Well, your defense percentile is a little lower because your run stop was low. You have them at 43rd. I have them at 45th. So we're saying below
overall worse than Minnesota. Are you worse than Minnesota?
Yes.
I am as well.
Yeah.
And that number can flip immediately.
Wait. You said worse. You said overall, right?
Overall, I have this as a worse
defense.
Than Minnesota.
I have the defense is better than Minnesota's, but I have Minnesota's offense is better.
Oh, for sure. No, I have this defense as a 43rd. I have Minnesota's as a 38th, but overall, I have Minnesota as a 46th, and Chicago is like a 44th. So
let's get to the rest of the numbers. Special teams, what you got?
5.
Okay. And intangibles?
Intangibles is a 4. I had one thing on special teams. They drafted a punter. Cairo Santos is good. Velus Jones, DeAndre Carter, good signing, good returners. They drafted this punter in the 4th round. He didn't even punt in the game, the Hall of Fame game. They stuck the other guy out there, which I don't know if it was hey, we have 2 punters. Does somebody want to give us a 7th rounder for this guy? Because the other punter was all right. Aussie punter. What's his nickname?
The Kangaroo Kid.
You're close. You had an animal.
Koala Jack.
Koala Jack? Crocodile punter.
Crocodile punter.
The croc punter.
Holy shit, that's awesome.
It's a good
crocodile punter. Oh my god.
I have that in bold. That's such a good nickname. And another real quick aside, he was drafted
of the Norm Macdonald crocodile hunter joke, which is maybe the best joke of all time. If you haven't seen that, Google it. Or YouTube it. God damn, I love that
real quick too. He was
Jon Stewart just cannot stop laughing on basically in the shadow of the crocodile hunter's death. Norm did that stuff the best when it was nobody else could have said that at that point. And real quick too, he was drafted into the CFL as well. And I just click, and you end up on a weird Wikipedia page. So the CFL has a global draft where they can only pick non-Canadian, non-Americans.
And in the Wikipedia page, it said it was the fourth CFL draft that pooled all of the global players together after previously having separate drafts for Mexican players and European players, which is just a weird. They had a Mexico only draft in the CFL. Go dig into that. There's like some Mexican football league that they use as a feeder league.
Really?
Into the CFL. Huh. Yes. It's very odd. But yeah, in the international draft, a lot of first round punters.
Okay. Interesting.
So
all right. So in
good,
total,
which
let's get to the Bears. Oh, intangible. What was your intangibles?
4.
4?
I already gave Waldron. Maybe I should give a bump there for Waldron.
I gave him a 3. I don't like Luke Getsy really at all.
Yeah. Eberflus.
I'm sorry, Eberflus. I don't like Eberflus at all. I think I have problems with a lot of what he's done, and I think that I really just think they should have maybe moved on, had a clean start here.
Yeah, Norm. There's got to be 20-minute long montages of Norm doing OJ jokes.
That one's pretty good. That one is really good. All right. The ultimate number you landed on for the Bears as a 44th percentile team was -2.5. Is that right?
Yeah. Like I said, I would have
2.
The Vikings as a favorite on a neutral.
Yes.
Feels sacrilegious.
Well, yeah, but by the time they play, let's look at the schedule. I think by the time they play, it's probably going to be J.J. McCarthy's season, so you're not expecting them to be favorites, right?
I don't know. Do I have
You're going to go down. You're going to go down with your number when they bring in McCarthy, I think. Let's look at the schedule.
What's your difference between Darnold and McCarthy?
I'm sure it's a negative delta, maybe half a point. Something like that?
Yeah, roughly.
Okay. So where are we at?
Oh, I'm sorry. Schedule.
Schedule-wise.
You said it, and I didn't bring it
up. Okay. Here's where we get into the pie-eyed optimism of Bears fans. You see a lot of blue on this schedule. Cool your jets. I really, really don't know how many of these games are ultimately going to go off as favorites in. Certainly the home games against New England and Carolina and Tennessee, it's reasonable to expect that you're going to be a meaningful favorite. I don't know about Seattle. I don't know about Minnesota. And I would expect that your road games, you have a reasonable chance to close favorite, but not likely against Washington and Arizona. I absolutely laugh out loud at the idea that you're going to be favored at home versus Green Bay when Green Bay is coming off their bye. That's going to be a big old market correction.
I feel like if you go look at that right now,
probably already corrected.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think
Green Bay is just getting so much steam in the every other futures market. People love them.
Yeah, right. Like, I guess just what I'm getting at is the implied power number here is written in a way that they wanted to write bad bets for Bears fans in this market. I feel like. Do you
Illinois, a legal betting state. Yeah,
a legal betting state. Yeah. Okay. Let's break it down a little bit more carefully. A soft start with Tennessee, 2 tough ones, Houston, Indy. But hey, guess what? Guess what, Andy? That's 3 very young quarterbacks. Maybe you aren't really paying the price for having some suspect coverage. Well, against Houston you are, but definitely Tennessee and Indy, maybe not. Too many weapons in Houston. Rams, too many weapons. Carolina, maybe you're fine. Jacksonville, maybe you're fine. Washington, you're probably fine. Arizona, maybe you're fine. New England, you're definitely fine. So you could realistically get to middle of November and have a team that has, if they hit any high spots, any game that Caleb Williams shows up in balls, you could probably win in that stretch. There's really no games that you're out on, right? Between week 1 and week 10. Like, you could get to week 10, and if Caleb Williams shows up in 6 of those games, you're 6-3.
Even the Rams game, like Puka Nacua is banged up. They're doing x-rays and MRIs.
Yeah.
That could be something that changes the complexion of that game. Anthony Richardson, I haven't seen a ton of him yet. Houston just feels like a bad spot, man. Early in the season with all the receivers healthy. But
on Sunday Night Football,
Carolina, Jacksonville, Washington, Arizona, New England, right up into that Green Bay game at home, which is, no loss throughout the record.
What do we think about the decision the NFL had of putting week 2 Sunday Night Football is Chicago at Houston?
It's fun. That's like
that's really fun.
Lovie Smith should get to ring the bell or whatever the fuck they do, start bang the drum.
He swung those 2 franchises' fates so aggressively.
Like, there's going to be a John Boyce documentary in like 10 years, looking back after Houston and Chicago meet in the Super Bowl like 3 times.
Butterfly effect of that catch.
God, that was so massive.
Really,
it's crazy. It's crazy
hiring Lovie Smith in the first place, which made no sense.
No. Tough ones there though, like Green Bay, Detroit, San Francisco, even Minnesota on the road, who, depending how JJ is playing at that point, if they're healthy, but that could be a really tough stretch where you go, I mean, fuck it. Let's say Minnesota's playing well on offense. Something's working out at the quarterback spot. Then you go Minnesota, Detroit, San Francisco, Minnesota, Detroit, Seattle, Green Bay. It's not an easy landing.
Terrible landing. Like terrible.
Which might be good because let's say this is just, hey, we laid this out at the beginning of the podcast. We get the good games from Caleb. We're excited. The fan base is invigorated. They're ravenous. They're pumped. This is going to be a team that we can cheer on for years. This is a quarterback we can build around. But honestly, they don't have the defense. You don't need a Ray Lewis 2000 Ravens defense to win the Super Bowl anymore. But you need something better than what they're probably going to put out there this year. And, it's not a team that's going to make a deep run in the playoffs. It'd be great. This is the eternal struggle of like, hey, do we get the playoff experience? Do we get the stinker out of there? Or it wouldn't be the worst thing to lose like 6 of the last 7, draft like 11th, get a really good edge rusher again. There's some good ones coming out next year. I read a mock draft the other day, Drew. I'm so embarrassed. There's some mock drafts already. People. I don't watch college football that much, so it's a bunch of guys. It's like, oh, here's a wide receiver from wherever, and that you've never heard of because you don't watch college football. But, so I think either outcome is good. I would just hate it to be in between, where it's like they finish as the 8th best team in the NFC. You don't get the fun playoff game, even if it turns out to be you against the 2 seed, just getting hammered. And you don't get the high draft pick. So I kind of hope once they hit that last chunk of the season, it goes one way or the other.
Yeah. You know what I see when I look at this? I see 2 very, very clear opportunities. And they're one of them sad for Bears fans, one of them's positive. The sad one for the Bears fans is,
you want the good news or the bad news?
The sad one for the Bears fans is Caleb Williams going into that Green Bay game where you're hosting Green Bay on Sunday, November 17th, maybe as favorites. He's going to be like minus 1,000 rookie of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be a hot sell. I think that's the time you shop for the surprise, the shocker.
Daniels, JJ, wide receiver,
the shocker. The shocker. You take the shocker then, because I think you're losing to Green Bay 50-50 to Minnesota. You're losing to Detroit, San Francisco, at Minnesota. 3 in a row on the road. Bang, bang, bang. Tough stretch to get your feet under you if you're a young team trying to right the ship, right? And then Detroit, Seattle, Green Bay could be lost. Like, this is not out of the realm of possibility that you come down the home stretch with 8 losses in a row. And the bad news is
that's tough for a rookie of the year campaign.
Yeah. Caleb Williams, he's hit the wall. Like, you thought you were a wild card or maybe even division contender week 11. You're actually a sub 500 team.
Psych.
And so the bad thing, you lose out on the rookie of the year. The good news is Eberflus gets fired.
Ben Johnson.
You get a clean slate with somebody good.
Oh, yeah. Ben Johnson crosses the aisle. Goes in division.
Fun. Oh man, now we're cooking. That would be fun. That would be fun.
An offensive mind comes in rather than a defensive minded head coach.
God, that would be fun.
It would suck, but I think Waldron would land on his feet. He'd still be desirable if Williams had a good enough year. Maybe he gets retained and just doesn't call plays, which obviously isn't ideal for him. But yeah, Ben Johnson here would be fun because boy, there's some weapons.
Yeah, really and truly, and a moldable ball of clay and a quarterback with elite potential. I don't know. Does my read sound bearish, Andy, or does that sound reasonable?
No, and it's just like a matter of like how do you attack this? Because nowadays, more and more markets, are you looking at taking their win total over and then trying to come back on the other side mid-season, or I might just only do the second half of it, where start to look at some of these live win totals or live to miss the playoffs. If we're going to start getting towards 50-50 territory on them to make the playoffs because they, won more coin flips than they lost for the first half of the season, and it's a good team going into that second part of the schedule, like I'll take a nice price on the Bears to miss the playoffs, or maybe even some other teams that are behind them in the NFC to make the playoffs at 2-3-1, something like that. I think there's definitely some ways to look at this once you get to mid-November.
Yep, I agree. It's tough, man. This one's tough. This is a tough sequencing. I think the Bears are probably
Bears fans are going to be mad at us.
They should be happy. They should be positive. Fine to be optimistic.
I know, but we just said like we rated the Vikings.
Hey,
my power rating is 5.
You know what? You know what? If you're going to play a bunch of tough teams, when is it best to have them on your schedule? At the end, because maybe they aren't even that tough.
All the quarterbacks are there.
Maybe their quarterback's on the IR. Maybe the team just sucks and we didn't realize it. There's lots of reasons to be backloaded is a better thing. And
I mean, how many of those, like when you looked at this last year, like there could have been situations like, fuck, we, look at the end of the schedule, guys. We play the Chargers, the Vikings, and the Jets. That's Herbert, Cousins, and Aaron Rodgers. Like, there's so many of these things where it's like we look at this tough end of the schedule. You can be playing Dobbs. God, who is the Chargers quarterback? This Easton Stick.
The point could
be a lot different once we get to there. Many a slip twixt the cup in the lip.
Of course, but the point I think is if you're going into this season, and you want to bet offensive rookie of the year, Caleb Williams is the obvious choice. Like obvious.
Just such a good situation.
It's such a good situation. But if you bet that, just fucking gird your loins for mid-November.
Actively manage that.
Yeah, actively manage that. Exactly. It's not a big payoff. You got to actively manage that. And I think that's kind of the arc I see in O'Roy this year.
Because it's not a big price.
Right.
And you're going to be betting maybe more than you normally would on some of these smaller long shots. So no, like when he's at his peak, you're probably planning on taking some of that equity that you've accrued at that point and spending it on some arbs, not arbs really, like hedges, some of the other quarterbacks that might play well through the second half of the season, somebody you think that could spike that you are worried about stealing it if Caleb Williams has a tough stretch through that that tough schedule in the second half of the season.
He could win offensive rookie of the year anyway, even if they lose a bunch of games. And like my gut read is that for you to reach the potential of being a perennial playoff contender, you're gonna have to do better than Eberflus.
Yeah, that would be ideal. I know we have some Bears fans in the chat. If you guys think we're off base and you'd love to keep Eberflus, I'd like to hear why.
Yeah, same. And speaking of, you watch any Hard Knocks?
No, I'm not caught up at all.
No. The clips I've seen have not helped my opinion of Eberflus at all.
I've seen clips here and there. I'm so far behind on everything, Drew.
Yeah.
Because I didn't watch any TV on vacation, and then trying to catch up with these previews and golf and the Olympics. And I finally got caught up on the Dragon Show last night.
You know what I'm very caught up on is the Olympics.
Yeah.
Probably conservatively. I think I'm on I'm threatening triple hours here.
I got really fucking mad at Peacock the other day. I was busy in the morning. And I turned golf on. I went to Hulu, or I went to Peacock and I pushed golf, and they were showing the fucking Japanese one. And I hadn't realized it was during that rain delay.
Yeah.
There was a rain delay. I'm like, what is going on that we're not even showing the live? Nick says it's too early for Ben Johnson to X-team season again. We're going to do that with like every team. We've done it.
I don't even know if he's going to end up being the best candidate at the end of the year or not, but that would just be fun for the interdivisional, the interdivisional spiciness.
I mean, they did it with Getsy. How'd that go?
Did they?
Guess he was a Packers coach.
Oh,
They
was he?
brought him in. Yeah.
No, it'd be fun. That'd just be. We just want fun storylines. We want the NFL to be fun. We don't
Poor
want it to be
Nick.
so
I'm
fun.
gonna do for every other team that even has an inkling of losing a coach now. I'm gonna do that. Just we're reminded. I'm gonna call it Nick personally.
Yeah.
Nick, I think might be a good fit here.
I mean, like, the real question for real, Andy, is does Ben Johnson go in the direction of Chicago to finally deliver them, or does he go Dallas and like try to, he wants to be on the biggest stage, right? Like, does he go with the talent and the opportunity to make a city like memorialize him, or does he want to be on the big stage, right?
I don't know. The fact that he didn't take a job this year, I was surprising, obviously.
Well, the options I think were pretty limited to Washington, and there's reasons not to be interested in that.
Yeah, I thought he looked at Carolina too, but I think
There's reasons not to be interested in that.
There's a small reason not to be interested in that as well.
Okay.
That's
I'm curious.
That's the other thing about Caleb Williams, and he appears to have it all, but
yeah,
man, Bryce Young won a Heisman too, man. Obviously a different kind of situation with just the amount of talent that was around him down there, but I mean, Caleb Williams' best year, he had Addison, probably a better line, a better coaching staff. We'll see. I'm excited. I want him to play well. It's not good for the league for rookies to fall in their face. We need 2 of these rookie quarterbacks to play very well this year. There's always a shortage of good quarterback to play. I don't need more Easton Stick. Was it Aiden O'Connell Easton Stick? I believe that was the highest scoring game of the year. Was it not true?
I think our U.S. surfer is going to win gold.
Was what was the highest scoring NFL highest?
It was 90 points scored in the Dolphins Broncos game, Andy.
I think there was. I think there was more in the.
No, they didn't go over 90, did they? It was 63, 60 something. They didn't go over 90.
Okay, it was. I forgot that Denver scored 20 points.
90 points in that game, man.
90 points is a lot. Raiders Chargers was second. There was only 84 points. It was only a touchdown short.
Oh, that's pretty close, actually.
Jesus Christ.
Okay. I think I bet the under in that game. I did bet the Dolphins first half and team total over, which was home by the second quarter.
Those are always fun. That game was wild.
God, that was great.
So,
that was the secret pod play of the week of the year, right?
That was the Bears, guys.
All right.
Leave any comment if you think we missed anything. If we goofed up your favorite player's name. If you think the pass rush is going to be better, hit us up in the comments. Hit us up on Twitter. See us out at Bet Bash if you're out there. Hit us in the DMs. Me, Drew, the Deep Dive Pod. DM us if you're going to be out there. We'll try to let you know kind of where we're going to be hanging. Mostly just downtown because it's at the Circa, but we'll be around. So hit us up. Enjoy the rest of your Monday night. So enjoy those days too.
Would you take Philly or Dallas if they were both offered in the same timeline?
I'd probably take. I'm a pussy, so I'd take Philly. The expectations aren't there with the fans. I wouldn't want to deal with.
Well, the fans are very
both fan bases are horrible.